Hi, everybody, and welcome to Attendance Bias. I am your host, Brian Weinstein. Get ready for some venue whiplash. After 3 nights at the largest indoor venue on the tour in Chicago, Phish leaves the second city to arrive in New York. More specifically, July 22nd and 23rd at Forest Hills Tennis Stadium in Forest Hills, Queens, home to the Ramones, Simon & Garfunkel, and Peter Parker. If you've listened to Attendance Bias for any amount of time, you've probably heard me mention that I live in Forest Hills, and these two shows are a dream come true. I don't think I've ever lived closer to any music venue. Before these shows, I've certainly never been able to walk to a Phish concert from my front door. And who would be the best guest in the world to give a preview of this venue and this neighborhood? None other than my wife, Michela Ratto. Michela has been on Attendance Bias once before, and while I mostly give background information and context about this venue that's new to the Phish world, she gives plenty of tips and tricks to help any listeners coming to these two shows, filling everyone in on what to expect. We cover a lot in today's episode: the history of Forest Hills Stadium, what the neighborhood is like, the best ways to get there, and of course, we give our takes on the controversial headlines about the stadium that crop up ahead of every summer concert season. Ironically, this is the longest episode of this venue preview series, even though there are no music clips, since Phish has never played the stadium, and also they've never played the entire borough of Queens. So we're breaking all sorts of new ground this summer. So let's join Michela and I to get the inside scoop on the Forest Hills Stadium, our theories as to why Phish chose to play the smallest New York City venue they've played in years, and where to get the best food once you get inside on July 22nd and 23rd. Michela, welcome back to Attendance Bias. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good, Brian. Thank you so much for having me back.
So happy to have you back. You were previously here in 2022, I believe, to talk about the MoMA dance from October 29th, 2014 at the Bill Graham, where you heard the band segue from the MoMA dance into We Are the Champions to celebrate the San Francisco Giants win the World Series.
That is correct. Yes. 2 great memories, both the show and talking to you about it. Yeah, that was 2022. I believe the episode aired I think it was shortly before you and I were tied together in the bonds of holy matrimony.
Yes, that's true. It aired while we were on our honeymoon.
Oh, how wonderful.
Very romantic, yes.
Very romantic.
And we're here to talk about an upcoming show at the time of this recording, and kind of a big show, a small show, one would argue maybe a controversial show or a controversial decision to play this show or these two shows, and that would be Phish playing at the Forest Hills Stadium, the Forest Hills Tennis Stadium, on July 22nd and 23rd in Forest Hills, New York, which is in the borough of Queens, where you and I reside.
Yeah, it's the biggest little show on the tour. You heard it here first, folks. It's about a 5-minute walk from our apartment. We're very excited.
From where we're recording this episode, if we cut down a few trees or raised a few buildings, we'd probably be able to see the venue from where we live. To go through this episode, just the long view of it, there's a lot to talk about and not much to listen to because, as I just mentioned, Phish has never played this venue before. They've never played this borough before, but yet this has been arguably the most talked about run of the tour. I would say maybe rivaled by Folsom Field.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would also say we don't even have to be so destructive as to, knock down trees and raise buildings. I think if we just went on our roof, we could probably see the venue from here. But yeah, I would agree this is the run that's getting a lot of chatter, but that also could be because we're in, admittedly, quite a Forest Hills centric bubble. And so I think people are going out of their way to talk to us about these shows versus like no one's chewing my ear off about Manchester. No offense to New Hampshire. I think part of why we're hearing so much chatter is, of course, this is our little nook, our little cranny.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about our little nook, our little cranny. Forest Hills, as a neighborhood, as I've said twice already, is in the borough of Queens. It is not far geographically from Madison Square Garden, from Midtown Manhattan, which is where I would imagine most listeners are most familiar with seeing Phish. Although culturally, in terms of the way its lifestyle is, it is quite different. But we moved to Forest Hills in the summer of 2019. We loved it. I hope I could speak for you in that case.
Yes.
I love it very much. The way I would describe it, and I'd like to hear whether you agree, disagree, or have what to add, is it's kind of a perfect in between of city life and, well, I won't say country life, because we are in
That's
New
yeah,
York
a bit of a
City,
bit of a stretch.
but city life and suburban life, I think I
Mhm.
could say, and residential life,
Yeah.
because there are some main streets in Forest Hills, Queens Boulevard and Austin Street. And if you're a real member of the neighborhood, Metropolitan Avenue as well, that have a lot of traffic, a lot of businesses, a mix of chains and private stores, a lot of things to do, big transportation hubs. Forest Hills is right by a lot of the parkways that you could use to commute in any given direction. It also has a Long Island Railroad stop. It also has four major subway lines right near the stadium. It lets off right here. But at the same time, if you walk away from any of those items that I just mentioned, you'll encounter a very quiet, serene, and, in my opinion, aesthetically beautiful neighborhood. So it kind of has the best of both worlds, which I think was our major reason for moving here from Long Island, which kind of lacked that city access or at least city feel.
It's that summer 2019 when we moved here. I had been living in your old house in Long Island for a couple months, but was just coming from Bushwick, where I'd lived for like 7 or 8 years before that. And, it was clear to me from the jump I was not long for Long Island. It was not a place I could see myself really settling. I'm a bit of a city mouse or a country mouse, but I'm not a suburbs mouse. Really wanted to be somewhere that was, yeah, still convenient for you with access to the parkways because your life still pretty much kind of revolves around Long Island. Your job is there, your family's there. But yeah, we can hop on that LIRR and be in Midtown Manhattan in 12 minutes. So really is a great best of both worlds in terms of the aesthetic of the neighborhood. When we first moved here, I remember my sister started referring to it as our little gnome village. And it does sort of have that very Shire-esque feel. It was built around the turn of the century, the 20th century. I think I read once that it was a social experiment to see if they could make New York City more livable. So it was modeled on sort of English garden little villages. Uh, the town from Hot Fuzz comes to mind, or just any sort of little Cotswoldy town. So everything must kind of adhere to that rustic aesthetic. Red roofs, Tudors, timbers, brick, very limited selection of building materials. As much as like when I describe that sort of the rigid conformity required for building here, I feel like I sound like an elitist dingus, but I will say it's undeniably beautiful. It is also extremely green when you're walking from the big commercial street, Austin Street nearby, or 71st Avenue, Continental Avenue, where the subways are over the summer, and you cross into this neighborhood, instantly the temperature drops about 5 to 7 degrees because of all the shade. It's truly lovely. And so as a place to come on a summer evening and see a concert, I mean, it just cannot be beat. Just it's a the vibes are immaculate at Forest Hill Stadium, I will say always.
And speaking of those concerts or coming to any concert here, you and I were on a trip in February, this past February of 2025. We were in Finnish Lapland. We were north of the Arctic Circle in February when Phish released their tour dates. And so we were about, what was it, 7 hours ahead of the
7 hours
Eastern time
ahead,
zone?
yeah.
I remember it was early in the morning for us, and I started to get texts from my friends that there were rumors that Phish was going to play Forest Hill Stadium this summer when the tour dates would be released later that day, rumored at the time.
Hmm.
I found out later on that it was 3 in the morning when I was texting with my friends. For us, it was, it was, I think, at night. I can't remember, but my friends were texting me. They were up at 3 a.m. asking me, have I heard anything about this? And I immediately said no. The only rumors that I really heard about were SPAC and Folsom Field, which were all but confirmed
Hmm.
at that point. Everything else for the Phish tour was up in the air for me. But when I saw that Forest Hills Stadium was a possibility as a tour stop, I kind of immediately dismissed it. And at the same time, that little heartbeat of hope that
Hmm.
I always had that Phish would one day play at this venue started to beat a little bit harder. There were a million reasons why they shouldn't, and I still don't know why they are playing here, but I was thrilled that it was even a consideration. And then once the tour dates were announced, I remember my phone, while we were in Finland, just started going crazy with literally dozens, maybe in the end of at the end of the story, 100 text messages, all on the variation of the same message, just the words Forest Hills and 100 exclamation points.
Hmm.
And that was it. And when I saw it, when I opened the link that Phish has announced their summer tour, I couldn't believe it. Not only one, but two shows at this venue that we can see from our roof. And I forgot that we were on vacation. To me, I instantly dropped into Phish mode. And I started thinking about, I have to get there. Nothing's going to stand in my way. Who else is going to be there? Are we going to have people over beforehand? It was as if we were just at home and Madison Square Garden was announced for the New Year's run, but even more exciting. What was your reaction when you saw that Phish was playing at Forest Hills this summer?
Well, yeah, to dial it back just to those few hours where we were hearing it was rumored to when it was confirmed. I mean, you and I probably said the phrase, I mean, yeah, it would be awesome, like 2,000 times to each other because but we just weren't gonna believe it. I kept saying like this is just rumors. And we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Because we were, yeah, already subconsciously like menu planning a welcome party, a pregame. Like it was already the cart was so far ahead of the horse, you couldn't even see the horse from the cart. We left the horse in the dust. When it was confirmed, it was a little surreal. It hadn't even really ever been on my radar to like hope that they would play there, because even though it is a 13,000 seat venue, but when you're there, it feels like a 7,000 person. Like it feels half the size because it's very intimate. It is physically small, but it's like, so that's where the capacity comes in. And it has a pretty generous sized floor where, the tennis court was. So it does have this perfectly cromulent capacity, but in my mind, it's like, oh, that's a teeny tiny intimate venue. And I'm used to, it's like, okay, if New York City's going to get a Phish show in the summer, or the New York area, I should say, it's, maybe Jones Beach, which is 15,000 people, or obviously we had the Baker's Dozen. MSG is like just under 20,000, 19.5. Or years ago, now 11 years ago, when they played Randall's in 2014, that's there. No one will ever pin down what the capacity of Randall's is, but I heard things as high as 40,000. Seemed like the consensus was around 30,000. There's no data that I could turn up that really pinned down like how many tickets will Randall's Island allow you to sell, but it's massive. I mean, those Randall's Island shows felt enormous. Or again, like, SPAC, we're getting far from the city, but it's still like a New York show, both in the fact that it's in New York State and the fact that many New York City residents will like, that's a trip that's not infeasible. And that's, 25,000. So I'm used to like, if they're playing New York, it's a huge venue. So it was never on my radar that we would get Phish shows here in the neighborhood. Like that just seemed, why even bother to hope? And boy, is there egg on our faces, because it was what a thrill to know that they would be right down the street.
Yeah, it's strange that Phish is playing New York City in the summer. They played, you mentioned the Baker's Dozen in 2017, and then a couple years later, they played the 7 shows at MSG,
Right.
right? The indoor shows that didn't have any particular theme or any particular running gag or anything, but it was still
Mhm.
weird to be in New York in the summer, to be in Manhattan in the summer, and I was thrilled.
Yeah.
I love when Phish comes to New York for any reason, of course.
Hmm.
But yeah, when you go to Jones Beach, it's New York City area for sure, but it's not really a New York City venue, not only
No.
geographically, but it's a real bitch to get to.
Yeah.
And I
And it's
say that
also
as a lifelong Long Islander. Like,
yeah.
it's not a bad venue per se, unless it's windy or rainy. It's not easy to get to. You have to drive or take a bus. It is not accessible really by public transport in a very convenient way. But that would be the next biggest outdoor venue in the New York City area that Phish would play.
Yeah, and it is also a very summery venue. I mean, going out to Wantagh, it feels like a very summer, although ironically, as you say, it's not bad as long as there's no wind and rain. And last time Phish played there, there was so much wind and rain. It was absolutely brutal. Or I don't know if that was the last time they played there. Was that 2014 or 2013 that it was so rainy
the
and
shows
windy?
you're talking about were in 2013, but they played again the last time that we were talking about when our last episode together aired. They played while we were on our honeymoon again at
Right,
Jones
right, right. And we
Beach.
missed it.
Right,
Yes, right, because we
2022.
were out of area. Yes. Yeah, but so my last memory of Jones Beach, it was not very summery, but it does feel sort of it makes sense dramaturgically for them to play Jones Beach in the summer. But yeah, it's not a convenient venue for the city. If you're taking the LIRR, you have to hop on a special shuttle bus, which isn't so bad when you're getting there, but when you're getting back, it's like everyone feels like the last chopper out of Saigon. Everyone is packed on, exhausted, various states of cogency. It's not super fun to get to.
What would you say? What makes Forest Hills Stadium or Forest Hills as a neighborhood unique? Why do you think it's garnering so much press? When I say press, I just mean conversation and discourse. Why is it special that Phish is playing here this summer, do you think?
Honestly, I think it is a venue that for folks who have been to shows here, it is a beloved venue. I mean, I've never heard of anyone, and of course, again, in a bubble, in a very pro Forest Hills bubble, but I have not ever heard of someone who's been rhapsodized about the experience coming out to this beautiful neighborhood, that it is very easy to get to. And once in the stadium itself, I mean, the food is amazing. The If you're way up in the nosebleeds, you can look out over the back of the stadium and see the sun setting over the city, and it's gorgeous. You can look over into the tennis club and watch people play tennis. Like, it's such a special, strange little spot. When people ask, "Oh, what have you been up to?" If you've seen a show there recently, I always ask people, like, have you been? And if they have, they instantly know. Like, we're instantly speaking the same language. It's like, oh, isn't it the best thing to do? And then similarly, if they haven't, it's like everyone will chime in, like, oh, you gotta go. Look at the summer schedule, pick a band and go. It's such a good New York City thing to do.
I think what appeals to me the most is what you said earlier, is that it's a large venue. It certainly is a large scale venue, and big bands play here. Like last summer, Hozier played 4 nights, 4 consecutive nights, and sold out all four. The summer before that, Dave Matthews Band played. These are bands that play the same venues that Phish plays. The
Yeah,
Man or Merriweather Post or
that
Madison Square Garden.
that One Direction boy, that was a big show.
Who's
I,
that?
I don't know. I just remember that was the loudest I'd ever heard the crowd. We can't really hear the concerts from our place. Like, we can't hear music per se because there's so much incredible, like, sound deadening technology in the stadium, but we can generally hear crowd noise if we're out, like, walking the dog. And I will say I've never heard a louder crowd than that One Direction boy, not Harry Styles. I don't know. I want to say Lewis.
I'll look it
some
up.
some sprightly Lewis really blew the roof off the place, but it was a massive. Yeah, regarding the sound deadening technology, that is something to flag if you're someone that is easily has your trip freaked. Is that when you are if you're in the GA Bowl and you go down the stairs to exit the venue, you will instantly enter like a deadened sound tunnel within those stairs, and it is extremely trippy. So just to prepare you, when you're going to leave the concert, if you're like talking over your shoulder to your buddy, oh, what a great show. Oh my God, I can't believe that encore. You will enter into the staircase and all sound will drop out. And I just want folks to be aware that it's normal, and nothing to worry about.
What I would add to it, what makes it unique is what you touched on earlier, is that it's a large venue that feels real small.
Mhm.
If I were to compare it to any other venue that I've been to aesthetically, it would be the Greek Theater in
Yeah,
Berkeley.
I would say that's fair. Same kind of amphitheater, stone. Yeah, very intimate feeling.
The Greek theater is a little bit smaller, like the horseshoe of the
Mm,
seats is a little smaller, but at Forest Hills, there's no lawn. So
right.
imagine if the Greek theater, if anyone listening has been, if you took away the lawn and just kind of made the bleachers or the seats a little bit more tall, that's kind of what you can expect when you come to Forest Hills. So what you can
Yeah.
expect when you arrive, like I'll assume that most people will take public transportation. And I hope
Mhm.
you would because there's very little parking in and around the neighborhood.
And it is
And
actually famously the most booted neighborhood in New York City. That is potentially apocryphal. Brian will fact check it, but it is the streets around the stadium are technically private streets. So if you see a parking spot that's too good to be true, it is, and you will be booted. And it is like a cash operation to get the boot taken off. Like it is not, the juice is not worth the squeeze to try and get away with illegally parking near the stadium. They really won't let you.
yeah, if the sound technology when you exit sobers you up real quick, then when you get to your car and you see a boot on it with a sheet of paper taped to your windshield, and then you have to call this number, you have to get this private security to come around. After a show, it takes them forever because that's where they make all their money.
Oh
You will
yeah,
need
they're on
a
boot bonanza mode after a show.
Yeah, you will need $180 cash to get that boot removed. So I imagine most people will arrive by public transport, whether it's the subway, the E train, M, F, and R, all service Forest Hills, as does the Long Island Railroad, as I said. And if you do plan to drive, just know that there are parking garages on Austin Street and Queens Boulevard, which are kind of the two biggest streets nearby the stadium. They are both very close. But if you do just have to sneak your way and you have to find parking and you just think you're going to get it, think twice and also arrive early because they do close down streets surrounding the
Right.
venue on show days. And it should be noted that this show or these two shows doors open at 4:30 p.m. and the ticket time is 6 p.m. So it's extremely early. You'll have to get there super duper early and just do your best and via con Dios if you decide to drive.
Yeah, I would say definitely the subway. There's also a number of buses. You can't go wrong. It is a New York City show. It is accessible by public transit in a major way.
So this stadium is the oldest venue on the tour. A little history. It was built in 1923, so it's a year older than Folsom Field. It was built as a way to host what was at the time the United States Lawn Tennis Association National Championship, which was a tennis tournament that would become eventually the US Open. So the stadium hosted a series of professional tennis events. It was the place to be, with the US Open being kind of the centerpiece. And then when that tournament moved to a much more modern arena at the time in nearby Flushing Meadows, next to where the Mets play. It's just northeast of Forest Hills. So in between all that, in the early and mid '60s, the stadium was used as a concert venue. As you walk around the stadium, if you're coming to the shows, you'll see huge blowups of posters and promos for some of the more notable and legendary artists who have played at the stadium. The ones that caught my attention, and as I walk around, do catch my attention, the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, Frank Sinatra, Simon and Garfunkel, who were also Forest Hills natives, went to Forest Hills High School, Judy Garland, The Who, and there are a lot more as you walk around. And after the US Open, the tennis US Open moved to Flushing, the stadium then was kind of no longer used for concerts or anything at all. So it stood there completely vacant. It pretty much collected dust and it fell into disrepair, right? It's exposed to the elements. It's an outdoor stadium. And it was even on the chopping block a few times as the owners of the land of the venue. So the promoters kind of lease the stadium itself from what's called the West Side Tennis Club. The West Side Tennis Club was given offers throughout the 80s and the 90s to knock down the stadium from developers and have high-end condos built on the site. And each time this came up, with the headlines where, stadium in danger, is this the end for the Forest Hill Stadium? Each time representatives of the neighborhood would protest and the stadium became this kind of cause for people in Forest Hills to say, "We love it so much you can't knock it down." And Michaela, you'll be able to relate to this when because you know my wardrobe. The stadium kind of became the t-shirt at the bottom of your drawer that you never wear. It's got holes in it. It's raggedy. It might be stained, but it holds these amazing memories and you can't bring yourself to throw it out or give it away. So this stadium just stayed put and nothing was going on there for decades until the early 2010s when concert promoters, I don't know exactly who it was. I know currently it's promoted by Madison House, but the concert promoters in the early 2010s spent millions of dollars to renovate the interior and parts of the exterior. They were renovated, and then concrete on the outside was patched up. Permanent bleacher seats were installed. They're not very comfortable, but they do the job. A permanent stage was erected. Turf was laid down outside the stadium, but within the grounds, which is really nice. If you get there early, you could sit down on the ground. And the concourse was entirely redesigned, and they were ready for a concert. So in 2013, Americana pop favorites, Mumford and Sons, reopened the venue, and they've been hosting shows every summer ever since.
It is, I think they did. I obviously never saw it before, or maybe it's not obvious. I never saw it before the renovation, but I do think that they've done a beautiful job kind of keeping it true to its kind of design. It doesn't look like, shellacked and modern and minimalist. It looks like an old stone, great sort of institution. Fans of the Royal Tenenbaums will recognize it both from the scene where Royal is cruising around on little go-karts with Ari and Uzi, and where Richie Bomber plays has his whole mental breakdown, and there's a plaque commemorating that on one of the pillars. It says something along the lines of at this stadium, Richie Tenenbaum played the worst tennis of his life, and there's like a pair of shoes hanging up there. So it's a fun little icon in that sense.
It's like in the Royal Tenenbaums, and I know this isn't a movie podcast, but there's also the 192nd Street Y. So this stadium has been around so long. It's like part of this alternate New York.
Yes, exactly. And it feels that way. Like it feels as you're walking on the grounds, but outside of the bowl itself, you're under these huge archways that feel very much like, walking under the Manhattan Bridge, or, just this. I wish that I had exactly the right architectural vocabulary, because it's not the real kind of Rococo Beaux-Arts neoclassical, there aren't frills to it when you see those old downtown buildings that are stone, and they have you look up and they have unbelievably intricate sort of neoclassical filigree on them. It's not like that. It is a little bit more brutal, but it still has that beauty of these big pointed arches and big barrel arches and stuff.
And there are bronze eagles at the very top.
Right. Yes.
Which is
there
very
are bronze
cute.
eagles, and there is one of the strangest arrays of flags anywhere you'll see. In terms of, I would say it's definitely worth clocking the sort of ring around the top. It's just like a real hodgepodge there. It's USA, Ukraine, illegal mezcal. It's a really strange.
There's a pride flag, and there's one.
But
for
I want to say
WFUV.
it's some kind of corporate pride flag. It's not just a general rainbow flag. It's it's like Armor Hot Dogs pride flag or something really quite peculiar. Really quite a vexillologist's dream venue here in terms of just total hodgepodge. But yeah, it feels like a relic of an alternate old New York. It's very, very fun place to go.
And another thing that's fun about it, aside from the architecture and looking around and kind of feeling like you've simultaneously time traveled back to the early 1900s, but you are also in a very modern concert venue. And speaking for myself, wishing that more venues were like this. I would love to go to the Man, for example, and have the concourse completely laid out with soft turf. Then you could sit down against a pillar and enjoy a drink and not feel like your entire pair of pants or shorts are getting completely destroyed. It feels very welcoming. It feels very calm and very soft once you're in there, because before this concert season starts, it is a functional tennis court.
Do they play? Does anyone play
Yes, they
there?
do. They and
Like the club plays there?
yes, the club has, oh, they set up courts right outside the stadium on stadium grounds
Okay.
until the venue begins hosting events. And then once that happens, there are more permanent installations that they kind of have to take down the nets. So when you walk out or when you walk in, you might notice poles, like small poles, maybe up to your chest, just randomly as you're walking into the venue. Those are poles for tennis nets.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, you can see if you're up in the bowl, you can see the club very clearly, kind of back behind the stage. But I had not ever noted, I had not known that they actually are, it's still used for tennis within the grounds. That's neat.
What are some of your favorite Forest Hills Stadium memories? What are some of the best shows you've seen there?
Well, my first show at Forest Hill Stadium was 2014. I went with my sister. We saw Modest Mouse with Brand New opening. We didn't make it for the opener. We're no offense to Brand New. We just we both sort of missed them the first time around in the emo heyday. That was a fun one because that show was like smack dab in the middle of a Phish tour. So we had been going to all these Phish shows and then to be at the show with like a completely different crowd. Like we were used to being in such a homogenous crowd in terms of just Phish show after Phish show after Phish show, literally seeing many of the same people over and over again, just that we would recognize like, oh, hey, that's that shirtless guy. But shout out to shirtless guy. I saw him up and down the East Coast for years and years. Wish him well. Yeah, so it was like it was just like, oh wow, this is like a totally different group of people. We both were just kind of couldn't believe like stepping off the train and being in this little cozy forested wonderland. So that was a great memory that, I treasured for years and then didn't end up going back until 2018, when my best buddy had a birthday where we all went to see David Byrne, that American Utopia show, which was really great. And that was one where, because we were part of such a big group, we all just kind of got tickets up in the nosebleeds. And yeah, just as I mentioned earlier, watching the sunset over the city. I mean, it's just gorgeous. And you just feel, there are moments, if you are someone who has lived in New York a long time, I've been here about 20 years. And if you are a lifelong or close to it New Yorker, there are moments where the city really tries your patience and you really wonder why you live here. Why do you pay so much money? You could just live in St. Louis. It would be so much cheaper. Then there are moments where you just feel so justified in your choice to live in this very expensive place because you feel so at peace and so one with the city, and so that sense of awe that is depicted over and over again in movies when people when new immigrants see the Statue of Liberty by boat. It's like that sort of feeling of looking up and seeing the city and thinking, oh no, I couldn't live anywhere but here. This is so beautiful.
So when you come to this show to see Phish, you're gonna feel exactly like young Vito Corleone.
Yes, you're gonna be blown away by how baby vetoed out you feel. It is such a good feeling. It's such a feeling of awe. So yeah, that was 2018. Then obviously we kind of moved here at a bummer time COVID wise, because we moved here summer of 2019, and then the following couple summers were pretty thin for concert options. But since then, we've come back pretty strong. We've seen Willie Nelson, we've seen Neil Young, Goose last summer, the Avett Brothers, saw Wilco with Slater Kinney, saw Pixies with Modest Mouse and Cat Power. And then, I mean, this summer's got a great lineup. We're seeing Dr. Dog. You're seeing King Giz. And then we've got
seen My
Phish.
Morning Jacket.
Oh, My Morning Jacket, right? Of course, I forgot. How could I forget? Yeah, we've seen a bunch, and it's every time has been a treat.
So this podcast, this mini venue preview would not be complete, especially about Forest Hills, without addressing probably the headline that everyone has read, and it's the first question everybody asks me the first time they hear that I'm from Forest Hills is, oh, are there going to be concerts there this summer?
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten very sick of it because it's so simple and it's so outsized. I feel like we need to address this because it's such a wide-ranging canard.
Yeah.
It's more than it should be. So if you haven't yet, All you have to do is look up Forest Hills Stadium and click on the news tab in Google. And almost certainly you'll see either Reddit threads or New York Post links saying something along the lines of Forest Hills concerts in danger or summer Forest Hills lineup, more trouble about Forest Hills Stadium. So here's it from my point of view. Every year, it seems like there's this push and pull back and forth between the owners and promoters of the stadium who seem to be on the same side, and then the residents of the immediate surrounding area. And when I say immediate, I literally mean like the 3 or 4 blocks immediately surrounding the stadium. That if you walked out of your house and someone threw a newspaper at your front door, they'd have to throw it past the stadium entrance to reach your house. So every year, these same residents complain about the following issues: the number of events at the stadium, the volume of the music, the behavior of the concert goers, and in their view, the lack of crowd control of the concert goers. And it seems like every year there's a lawsuit, either against the promoters, who I believe are Madison House, and then there's a counter lawsuit against the Homeowners Association. And then eventually the concerts go on as scheduled. There's always a ton of headlines in between, but it always goes on as planned.
Yeah, I actually even think it's the same lawsuit that's been dragging out for years. I don't think there have been settlements in between. I think this is, I'm not positive about that, but I feel like it's just a constant unresolved thing that just, it makes headlines every summer, but it is ongoing forever.
But it's like getting the Christmas decorations out of your crawl space. It's
right.
Like, summer's coming up, time to get out the old lawsuit.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, nothing does ever really seem to come of it in a material way, like in terms of there aren't going to be concerts. Things might come of it in terms of like, well, now the curfew's this, or now amped up police presence, or whatever kind of concessions are being made. The impact they've not yet won the victory of there won't be any concerts, or there will be, 5 concerts, like the season keeps expanding. My perspective on it, I'm someone who is a native of San Francisco, which, as much as I loved growing up there, it is a city that has been all but gutted by NIMBYism. It is, for those, NIMBY stands for not in my backyard, for the uninitiated. And it is, cantankerous, generally quite affluent people that just do not want anyone coming in to their tea party and messing stuff up. And San Francisco is a cautionary tale. If you kick out all the fun stuff, you will be left with a husk of a place. And New York is a fun city with lots to do. And yeah, for 10 weeks out of the year, out of 52, there are concerts. Maybe it's more than 10 weeks. Maybe it's more like 15. Maybe it's even 20 weeks for however many weeks.
And that's part of it. But finish your thought, and then we'll get into more of the background of why this is so controversial within our neighborhood.
Yes, I do know that promoters keep pushing the envelope and, longer and longer seasons, which also in part, though, is, climate change related. Summer did used to only really be 3.5 months long, and now it is 5.5 months long. Like October in New York is summer. So, the positive is that there's still lots of fun stuff to do. The negative, if you are someone who hates people having fun near your house, then they're going to be doing it longer. But yeah, I think to your point, it is just like an old dusty trope that they keep dragging it out. But for anyone actually worried that like these shows will be canceled, my money is that they will not, nor will any show this summer.
Yeah, and for some historical background, it should be some context. It should be noted that the stadium lies and is constructed in a very small area of Forest Hills called Forest Hills Gardens, which is like a private community within the larger neighborhood. So they, being Forest Hills Gardens, the citizens of, have their own private security who will boot your car, as mentioned. And it is why the surrounding area of the stadium looks like the Shire. It looks like it's been frozen in time since the Victorian era. My read, like Michela just said, is that it's mostly NIMBY rich folks complaining as they want the neighborhood to be private and as quiet as possible. And they always leave out the fact in their complaints to the New York Post that they chose to move in or chose to inherit a house that is next to a stadium that's been there for, at this point, over 100 years. Some of the complaints are not without cause. So when the stadium began to host concerts in 2013, it was to be under these following conditions: that the concerts would end by 10 p.m., nighttime events would take place only on weekends, not Monday through Friday or not Monday through Thursday. Events were only to take place from June through August, and there would be a maximum of 15 events per season. And the organizers, the promoters, followed these rules from 2013 onward. And then, as Michela just mentioned, COVID did a real number on these compromises because the entire 2020 season was canceled. The 2021 season, I like your word, was thin, right? Not a lot of shows. So the promoters from 2022 and to now began to push the limits to make up for that lost money. So shows were scheduled during weekdays now. Some shows went to 10:30 or even 11 p.m. Even bands like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, who are not known for being a quiet, peaceful band, their volume was a bit higher than the agreed upon decibel level. In the past few years, the concert season, now it begins in May, and then it goes to October. They did, like you said, push the envelope, and most of these have been addressed with compromises over the past few years. At the end of every season, there's like a powwow, and then they come to another compromise, the warring parties. So because of these complaints, and this is what fans should expect, the venue has a hard curfew of 10 o'clock. Last year, when Goose played here, the end of their encore, literally the last note was played at 9:59 and 59 seconds. It was unbelievable. It was very impressive, really. And the lights came on. So for Phish, just so you know, I mentioned this, the doors are at 4:30 and showtime is at 6, which leads me to believe, yes, this is a hard curfew. The show will be over at 10 p.m. There's only one entrance and one exit now to prevent people from wandering off into the neighborhood and pissing on people's front lawns and leaving beer bottles and beer cans all over. The stadium itself has done extensive renovations, as Michela mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, to soundproof the venue as best as they can. But nothing is enough for the people who complain. So at the time of this recording, the New York Post is already reporting articles with, in my opinion, alarmist headlines like, quote, supporters warn of chaos if Forest Hills loses concerts, or Forest Hills Stadium told no concerts this summer. But literally the week before this conversation between Michela and I, there were 2 or 3 new shows already announced. So it drives me crazy. Every year, it's much ado about nothing. And what drives me crazy even more is that the headlines and the promotion of it makes it seem like the entire neighborhood of Forest Hills hates the stadium, when it really is just a very wealthy minority of complainers.
Yeah, and I mean the New York Post is gonna New York Post. They are gonna, put out clickbaity, rage baity sort of headlines, trying to whip people up into a frenzy. But you will see, if you're exploring the neighborhood at all, there are stickers in a lot of windows that say I support the stadium, especially obviously in the windows of small businesses for whom it's a tremendous boon the concert season, because there are a number of bars and restaurants up and down Austin Street that do, a hell of a trade on big show nights. And there are a couple things I think for, folks who this will be their first time visiting the venue, something to flag is with the, one way in, one way out. If you are someone who panics a little bit in a crowd, some things to note is if you are in the GA Bowl as opposed to on the floor, there are, I don't know, what do you think, maybe 10 staircases, Brian, all around the horseshoe, maybe fewer?
10, I would say 10 to 12, yeah.
10 to, yeah. And they're quite narrow. You could maybe go down 2 abreast. And so getting out of the stadium, if you do not leave during the encore or before it, getting out of your seat takes a long time. It's very slow funneling to those staircases.
Because the stadium was built for tennis, let's remember.
Of course. Yeah, built for tennis, and not necessarily built for rowdier crowds. One thing I will say I've seen at a number of shows is people trying to circumvent these long funnels by just walking down the bleachers. And, obviously you all know your own athleticism and balance, but for those of you with a tendency to overestimate your capacity, your nimbleness, after a few hours of Phish, I have seen people absolutely wipe out, and it is horrible. There is no soft surface. The nice turf that Brian mentioned is all outside the bowl. Everything in there is metal and stone, baby. Do not try and cut the line by clomping down the bleachers. It is so stressful for all of us little rule followers in line. It is so stressful to just watch someone Monty Python walk down these big stairs, all goobery and gooey, and you just know that they are going to wipe out, and they do. Um, so please, just, I mean, stay in your seat and debrief about the show for a little bit and wait for the lines to thin out, or Dodger fan it out of there, get out in the encore if you are someone that can't just be in a little herd. And I would also say not only the getting down the stairs, but also you are kind of kettled to get out of the venue. You are very much herded down this narrow kind of, it's not quite an alleyway, it is a street,
No,
but
it's
it
a
is
street.
sort of it's a street, but it's like a one-way street, right?
Yes,
That runs
it's a one-way
basically.
street, and
Yes,
and which is closed down to vehicular traffic.
Yes, it is closed to vehicular traffic, but it is bounded on one side by railway embankment, and it is bounded on the other side by the stadium itself. So you are very much funneled into that. And as most people are probably taking public transit, it spits you out at Station Square, right where the Long Island Railroad station is. So until you get to Station Square, you are, I don't want to, trapped is quite a dramatic word, but there is no outlet. So if you are someone who does not do well in crowds, maybe I'm talking about myself here. It would behoove you to just take a seat when the lights come on, and just let that crowd thin out a bit, because you will be herded in a way that doesn't feel great.
And if you try to break out of that crowd, just so you know, it's usually guarded the way. If you turn left when you have to turn, when you're being guided right, there's the NYPD preventing you from doing so.
Yes.
And because they're kind of an adjacent party to all this bickering back and forth between the promoters and the homeowners association, they don't pull up with any bullshit. So give them an easy night. They don't really have a tough job until someone makes it tough. I'm not one to back the Blues
I was just gonna say,
now.
like, Brian really simping for the cops here. Give them an easy night, folks. If there's one thing attendance bias stands for, it is the NYPD. You heard it here first, folks. Brian Weinstein can't get enough of cops. He loves them. He wants them to have an easy night always. They are.
It's just so easy to
I know what
right.
You mean, though. Yes.
It's just so easy to go and do what you're being asked to do, and they are very intolerant of people even trying to argue with them. And why can't I go this way?
Yes.
No one's going this way. And it's like, just
it just raises the sort of aggro vibe. It's never a good feeling. I mean, I know that, as I've confessed, I don't do great in a packed crowd, period, but it is a million times worse when there is some entitled bro like screaming at a venue security guard who's just standing there trying to keep things moving, and this guy has to now raise the temperature of everything and raise the kind of chaos and make everyone kind of push to get out of his way, just because, I just want to go over there. I'm parked right over there. It's like, buddy, we all want to just go right over there. A lot of people's girlfriends want to just go right over there. But there's simply nothing to be gained, and quite a lot of tension to be had if you have to be the person. So just please, when you come to the neighborhood, don't do it for the NIMBYs, don't do it for the cops, do it for your peers here at the show, your fellow concert goers. Just be cool. Just be 13,000 little Fonzies, everybody. Just be cool. I think we'll all have a great time, but yeah, there is always some aggro guy that just simply must lift up what are those guardrail kind of partition things called?
I call them guardrails, yeah.
Call them guardrails. It has to lift up the guard. It has to, and then it comes down to some poor venue guy that has to be like, please, sir, don't. It's like, please, sir, don't. Like, just for the love of God, please, sir, don't. Just come prepared to know that it'll take you a while. If you know the venue has a 10 p.m. curfew and you're trying to get a 10:05 Long Island Railroad train, buddy, you got to leave a little early.
What are some positive tips to end this segment? I have one in my mind, but what's one thing you could offer to someone to have a really good time and enjoy Forest Hill Stadium that they might not automatically know? If it's their first time there, what's a tip you can give them instead of don't do this? What's something you could
Fair.
tell them to
Okay.
do?
Yes, fair. I would say my tip is come hungry, buddies. The food is awesome. It's a rotating concessionaires season by season. There's always usually, I know always usually doesn't mean anything, but if the past few years there's been Arancini Brothers, there's been amazing chicken sandwiches. There's a local sandwich shop called Stacked that Brian is very partial to. That's great big sandwiches. There's just no shortage of great concessions, always lots of vegan and vegetarian options, various allergy concerns. There is something for everyone, and it is a treat to go a little early and get yourself some dinner. And a good tip is it's a cashless venue. So come prepared to do some tap to pay stuff. And this is not true of every show, but a lot of shows have like concessioners that come into the crowd. So that's pretty fun. You'll see, like at a baseball game, people coming through with beers and waters, hard seltzers, etc. So that's great. So come hungry, come thirsty,
That was going to be
and
my
don't bring
tip
cash.
also. Yeah, that was going to be my tip as well. The only thing I would add in a positive way is that a lot of the vendors and concessioners that Michaela mentioned are local businesses,
Hmm.
are local restaurants or takeout places that have either won bids for contracts or have applied somehow and they've been installed in their little vendor tents in Forest Hill Stadium. So because of the early start times of these shows, if you don't have time to get to the neighborhood and have time to explore Austin Street or Queens Boulevard, which are the two main stretches with a lot of restaurants and bars, you can go straight into the venue because you're leaving work and you have to go take the Long Island Railroad or the subway straight to Forest Hill Stadium. Just know you will be well taken care of in terms of food. So if you are going to spend $17 to $25 on dinner, you will more than likely get your money's worth instead of like cold chicken fingers and soggy fries you might get at
Hmm.
most Live Nation venues, for example.
Yeah, there's great Finny Pizza is there. Last summer there was Rockstar Chicken, the super yummy crispy Korean chicken with the like honey butter fries. Oh my gosh, great stuff. So, and the Phish shows particularly are at like such an awkward time that I feel like this is
It's
like
dinner
set
time.
break din din. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like yeah. I think that'll be great. That I think everyone will really enjoy uh dining in venue.
So at this point in every venue preview that I've done, we've delved into Phish's history, either at that venue or in that neighborhood. This is going to be a really quick section because, as mentioned earlier, Phish has never played the Forest Hill Stadium before. And not only that, this is their first time playing in Queens at all. The only other history I would be able to give is either the one time that they played Brooklyn in 2004 or the, I don't know, 85 other times they've played in Manhattan
Hmm.
before this. So we don't have time for that, but I will give a little bit of background. And then, Michaela, I want to hear your opinion. This venue has been booking in recent years more mainstream, I'm putting this in quotes, jam band and jam band adjacent acts over the past few
Hmm.
years. So we've mentioned Goose, we've mentioned King Gizzard, I mentioned Dave
You
Matthews
mentioned
Band.
Dave Matthews, yeah.
Yeah, My Morning Jacket, right? Who are not quite jam band, but a lot, they kind of share the same bills as a
Hmm.
lot of big time, big venue acts that we like.
You could put it this way that you could see a t-shirt for any of those bands at the concert of any of the other bands.
Exactly. Well said. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I wonder what caused the bands to bring this full circle. What caused the band or their management to book this venue instead of MSG, which they've played in the summer before? So I wonder if Phish, because they share the same management, or if they share the same tour booking management as Dave Matthews Band. And it seems that most acts that play the venue enjoy it. So maybe word reached the band. I know that Trey was at King Gizzard in 2023, so maybe he just liked what he saw.
Hmm.
Do you have any theories, or if you had to, do a mind meld crystal ball thing, why do you think Phish decided to come here this year?
Yeah, I think That sounds as good as any to me, that like he saw it and he liked what he saw. I mean, he's a New York City guy. I think probably there, for me, I'm someone who is such a completist and very list oriented. All of my hobbies essentially revolve around checking things off lists. So to me, if I was in Phish, I'd be like, oh, we've played all these great New York City venues, we should do that one. We got to check it off the list. So that to me would appeal if I was in the band. There's no argument for it like seeing a show there. It is I can't evangelize about it enough what a special place it is, what a fun place it is, what a beautiful place, just a great New York City thing to do. It's like going to Coney Island. It's like, it's like eating a hot dog on the Met stairs. It is just a great New York thing to do. And so I could see, coming for those King Gizzard shows, or, I know obviously Trey's friendship with Goose and Dave are well documented. So I don't know if he was at either of those or even just heard good chatter. But yeah, I think to see is to believe, and to come here is to want to come back. So that would be my guess.
Well, Michela, thanks for coming on and kind of being the second voice about Forest Hill Stadium, because I've been obviously talking to everyone I know about how excited I am for these shows. So it's really great that I had a second person to speak with me, because I've just been kind of talking to myself in a corner since we got the tour announcement. So I appreciate you coming on the show, taking the time to say what you know, give recommendations, both do's and don'ts about the Forest Hills Stadium, and I am looking forward to July 22nd and 23rd this year.
Yeah, I am too, Brian. I'm very excited. Thank you for having me. I'm always happy to talk to you, Brian, now and for the rest of our lives.
And that's it for today's episode and chat with Michela Ratto. I'd like to thank Michela for joining me today. Even though we didn't use any music clips, I always like to thank Phish.in for their recordings. We didn't use much background information, but I always like to thank Phish.net for any information we use, as well as to express my appreciation for the Mockingbird Foundation for everything they do to help children's music education. If you enjoy Attendance Bias, please visit www.buymeacoffee.com/attendance bias and donate anything you can to keep this project going. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time for the last episode of our venue preview with Saratoga on Attendance Bias.